What's going on, guys? I hope that you're all having a wonderful day today. For those of you that are new to the channel, my name is Ty, and today in this video, we're going to be talking about the Oscars, and more specifically, what film that I think is going to win Best Picture, and what film that I want to win Best Picture. Now listen, I know that a lot of people care about the Oscars because of the fact that it's this large, tremendous, prestigious award ceremonies for films that's meant to celebrate film and movies as a whole. But there's also a large crowd that truly do not care about the Oscars because of the fact that they constantly get their choices wrong. It could be seen as disrespectful when certain films don't get nominations, and on and on and on. And I understand both sides. I've already said this in a couple of videos, especially in the past couple of months, that I feel that this is a weaker year overall for films. And honestly, this feels like a very weak Oscar year in particular. I mean, last year, even though it felt like Oppenheimer was a lock for a lot of the bigger awards, like whether it's Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, it still was exciting because a large director like Christopher Nolan, one of the greatest of all time, was finally going to get the respect that he deserves, get his Best Picture Oscar, get his Best Director Oscar. Cillian Murphy, someone who's kind of been, looming around, was finally going to get shown love at the Oscars. It was still thrilling. It was a tight race also with Paul Giamatti, but when it comes to the 2025 Oscars, I feel like it's just this race between a bunch of smaller, more indie films that a lot of people have not seen, whether it's Conclave, Anora, The Brutalist. I could go on and on. A lot of these movies have had really poor distribution, and as great as they've, been called and how apparently they're all spectacular, basically no one has seen them because they're in limited releases across the country. They're not in any theaters, or they were only showing for a week or 2 weeks. So this just feels like a weaker year overall. It feels like a down year, not as many good films released this year. And on top of that, I feel like the Oscars just never want to show love to more IP-based movies. And don't get me wrong, I get it. A lot of them can end up being slop. But also, those films tend to win things like Best Costume or Best Visual Effects, like when Black Panther: Wakanda Forever won the Best Costume Oscar, or when Avatar: The Way of Water won Best Visual Effects. But when it comes to the real good Oscars, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actress, all these other ones, I feel like they only go for the better films, which I honestly completely respect because I think that's the way it should be. But either way, I want to talk about what film I think is going to win Best Picture this year and what film I think should win Best Picture this year, because I think they're two completely different categories. One thing that I really do like about the Best Picture category is the fact that there are 10 slots for nomination. So there's going to be 10 movies that are going to be nominated and only one is winning. When it comes to Best Actor, Best Actress, there's only 5 nominations, so literally half the amount of choices. I feel like it's already an achievement on its own just to get nominated for a Best Picture Oscar. I think that's totally respectable, and I like the fact that more movies just get shown love in that way. You don't always need to win Best Picture. Even just getting nominated, I think that's an achievement in and of itself. But what films do I think are going to get nominated this year? Let's just start off with that. I'm not going to, rattle off 10, honestly, or make some type of list, but just off the top of my head, Dune Part 2, I'm going to get to that movie in a second, but I think that's definitely a lock to at least just get a nomination. Anora, Sean Baker film. The Brutalist is another film. It's a 4-hour-long Adrian Brody-led war film that, again, had such small distribution that, nobody got to see it. I didn't get a chance to see it. It was in no theaters near me, but apparently that's going to be nominated. The Complete Unknown, I believe, could get nominated with Timothée Chalamet, the Bob Dylan biopic. From there's a ton of other movies that I would absolutely love to get nominated, but I just don't think they're going to make the cut. Whether it's Challengers, hopefully it gets nominated, but I just don't know if it's going to make the cut. Furiosa, honestly, I would love a Furiosa nomination for Best Picture, especially because, again, there's 10 slots. Even if it's the 10th best movie, I don't care. I just want it on that list. Another film that I believe is going to be on that list is going to be Conclave, which is the Ralph Fiennes Pope film that came out, sort of a political drama. Seemed pretty interesting, but again, another movie that I didn't get to see because I feel like it was in theaters for 2 seconds. But listen, I'm done talking about nominations. I want to talk about what film that I believe is going to win Best Picture and what film I believe that I want to win Best Picture. Honestly, I don't even know where to start, but let's just start with the more boring pick. The film that I actually think is going to win Best Picture. If I had to actually put my real money on a movie winning Best Picture, what film do I truly believe it's going to be? In my heart, I think that Anora is going to win Best Picture in just a couple of months. In 3 or 4 short months, Sean Baker and Mikey Madison are going to be up on that stage celebrating their award. Now, let me explain why. I honestly was super excited for Anora. I didn't love it as much as I thought I would, but at the same time, I cannot deny the fact that it was an incredible film. I feel like even though it was deeply emotional, even though it was very funny at times, it still was a crowd pleaser in the sense that it was very technically impressive. I think that throughout the entire film, you just fall in love with Anora and you feel really bad for her. It was a phenomenal film, and I feel like it has all the aspects of a Best Picture winner. It has a monstrous lead performance with Mikey Madison. I think that she could even win Best Actress. On top of that, it's an independent film. It's not like a sequel. It's not like a Marvel movie. I think it has a better chance, obviously, because of that. And from there, the story, it has a lot of substance and it has a lot of depth. These are the types of films that win Best Picture. I feel like as we get closer, we're gonna start to see this movie start to heat up in discussions within culture. I feel like I haven't seen any bad reviews for this movie, and I think also that since it was kind of trying to touch on, I don't want to say a more touchy subject, but since it was trying to almost give awareness to like sex workers and like all the abuse and the trauma and the drama, and I don't mean to make that rhyme, that they go through, especially they're trying to go for something, I think that also gives it a better shot. And I really respect the message that they were trying to portray in that film. I think it was great. But let's move on to what movie that I think should win Best Picture. And guys, I'm just going to give you a hint. I don't know if you could tell from the back of my shirt that I have on here. It's going to be Dune Part 2. Dune Part 2, listen, let me just start off by saying this. It's not just a once-a-year film. Dune Part 2 is a once-a-decade type of film, okay? And it is going to be, and I already feel this coming, one of the most disrespected films ever in the history of Oscars. I already see the way that this film is going to get snubbed in multiple categories, but we're just talking about Best Picture. I think that it'll pretty easily snag a nomination, but I really don't see it winning for multiple reasons. Let's start off with number one. It's a science fiction film. I know that a lot of science fiction films have won it before, of course, dramatic films, but either way, it's a science fiction IP franchise type of movie, unfortunately. The second thing, it's a sequel. The fact that it's a sequel, for some reason, the Oscars hate sequel movies. Don't get me wrong, Return of the King won Best Picture. That was a sequel, but that is arguably one of the greatest sequels of all time. Dune Part 2 is as well. I would agree with anybody, but it's just the fact that it feels like the Oscars hates sequels, so that reduces your chances so much, regardless of how good the film is. Another reason why I feel like this movie just won't win is just because the Oscar voters, I feel like they're just so pretentious and just so insufferable at times. This movie was so popular, and also, since it released such a long time ago, back in March, I feel like people forgot about it, which is so stupid and so unfortunate that Oscars, I feel like, are always based off of when a movie releases. There's a reason why the fall and winter is called the Oscar season, because the closer that you release your movie to the Oscars, the more relevant it is and the more fresh it is on everyone's mind. Dune came out in March. People are still talking about it way more than a half of these indie films, to be completely honest with you. So I don't understand why it wouldn't win. But this film's story transcends anything that we've seen in a long, long time. From an acting standpoint, I think Timothy's going to get the Best Actor Oscar for The Complete Unknown, which apparently is great, but he could even win it for this film. The vision of this movie, all the actors giving career best performances, it's just incredible. Denis' vision was just unbelievable. I really think, and I really want this movie to win Best Picture, but unfortunately, I just don't think it's going to win, and I think it's going to be disrespected because of the fact that, honestly, it's popular, it's a sequel, and it came out too long ago at this point. It's a 2024 film, don't get me wrong, but when a movie releases months back, it's like the Oscar voters just forget it even happened, and it becomes more disrespected by the minute. Don't get me wrong, if Dune Part 2 came out like a month ago, I think it has a much better chance to win Best Picture as the same movie. I'm not saying that you have to change anything in the movie. Literally just changing its release date, I think would have given it a better chance to win Best Picture, but unfortunately, even though I feel like the wave is still going, it's just not going to win, and it's really unfortunate. The cultural relevance that it had, the way that everybody was talking about it, it was like an event at its time, just like Oppenheimer last year, which won Best Picture, but I just don't think it's going to win. But I just kind of wanted to talk about the fact that I think Anora is going to win Best Picture, and the fact that if I was the one to make the choice, Dune Part 2 would win Best Picture, and I can't even understand how another movie is going to win this year. I mean, I gave my reasons. I understand on a political level, from the Oscar voters' perspective, why it wouldn't win, but I just think it's absolutely ridiculous, and I can already see this movie being disrespected, especially once we see the nominations start to come out. I think it's going to just be brutal, but listen, that's just about it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.